because this is Jessica Corey. Jessica, hi. Come on over here. And now you're part of a group that represents patients and caregivers, right?
That's right. I'm an attorney who represents several dispensaries as well as their patients.
You know, I want to talk about medical marijuana. Of course, I gave a radical view, I guess, because I say, who cares? But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about medical marijuana. It was an amendment. It's not a law. A lot of people don't understand that. It's a constitutional right now in this state, just like the right to freedom of speech or the right to bear arms. It's a constitutional right. That is higher than a law.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons we're so very concerned with what's being presented at the legislature right now. One of the proposals actually would allow local governments to ban dispensaries. And this is concerning because the Constitution prohibits local governments from banning the utilization of a constitutional right. And we know this because we litigated it. I was one of the attorneys that successfully shot down Centennial's efforts to ban a dispensary there.
Okay.
And for those people who really say, I don't care about medical marijuana or marijuana is evil,
yes,
let's take it to its logical extreme. If the government can ban this constitutional right, what other constitutional right can they ban? So this is really about local control and
here's what I wanted to say. In the law, in the amendment itself, it does say that there should be laws for the details. It actually says we're kind of vague here, so we're going to need some laws. So by a certain year, you need to come up with laws. Isn't that what they're doing?
Well, I think with any constitutional amendment, you don't want to be too specific as to unjustly limit the opportunity of lawmakers or leaders in the future to properly implement.
Just like the right to bear arms doesn't say you have a right to have a gun store. It says you have a right to bear arms.
Well, what this amendment, in particular, Amendment 20, which was passed in 2000, says is that there will be a procedure, and it doesn't lay out this procedure,
right,
but to dispense, distribute, transport, essentially to create a system to get it from the person who grows medical marijuana to the patient.
So if you think they make that system too restrictive, you think it's unconstitutional?
Well, I think that clearly, actually, courts are instructed to assume a plain reading of language, and what that means is if voters in 2000 overwhelmingly supported medical marijuana rights, which they did,
yeah, they did,
we have to give a plain meaning or plain reading to that language.
Which means what then?
Which means that we should have a system where we can distribute medical marijuana, where it's safe, where patients who are recognized under a state regulatory system are allowed to have medical marijuana. Now, there may be abuses. I'm not the first to stand up here and say that all nearly 100,000 people who are now registered as Colorado medical marijuana patients. That's a significant number in itself. But I'm not here to say there aren't abuses. What I'm here to say is let's put it in perspective. And the perspective is this. In Colorado today, prescription drugs are the #1 killer.
I know.
So a kid getting into our medicine cabinet is a far greater threat than marijuana, which has never, not once in this country's history, been independently linked to a single death.
And, you know, I mean, it would be more reasonable to make parents lock a medicine cabinet than it is to do what they're doing with medical marijuana. They seem to be bent out of shape about it. And again, you guys can call me, 303-MARTINO, 627-8466 with your opinions. Look, I don't want my children smoking pot, and I don't use it, but I'm just saying that I don't know why we're so bent out of shape. We really are. It's like, you know, we had beatings going on downtown and with gangs, and the Attorney General, all he cared about was writing a law about marijuana. I mean, get to it. I have consumer fraud every day that I call their offices about. What are you doing about it? You know, they're too busy with medical marijuana. I mean, come on.
Well, one of the important issues about this is that there are issues to be addressed here. We want to protect people.
Okay.
But none of these proposals put forth deal with any of the issues we're talking about. Instead, they criminalize patients. And the latest bill removes one of the most wonderful benefits we have medical marijuana, which is tax revenue. If you talk to Americans, and in particular Colorado, and you say, would you support a proposal that would legalize medical marijuana and then tax it and regulate it the same way we do with liquor stores, over 60% of Coloradans say yes. I'm not a medical marijuana user myself or even a recreational user.
No.
I'm a Republican mom, and I am so sick and tired of having my tax dollars used to stop adults from using a substance in their own home. Marijuana does not make people dangerous. And having gone to the University of Colorado and been at many a frat party and seen violence spilling over onto the streets from bars at 2 a.m., I would much rather have my children exposed to marijuana. Is it perfect? No, it has consequences. But these bills do not encourage a transparent system. Instead, they're going to force an underground, and that's what we're going to see if these bills pass.
We have a call, but this is something I wanted to bring up. If you had dispensaries that were regulated, heavily regulated dispensaries that could grow and sell, you would have less proliferation of groweries than the current legislation. The current legislation says limit everyone. So if you take that to its logical extreme, caregivers can only do 5 patients. We could be talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of caregivers as opposed to fewer dispensaries. Can we go to Pete on the phone? We might be a little over time. We'll make it up. Come on, Jen. Pete, what's happening?
Yes,
what's happening,
Tom.
Pete? What's your comment?
Well, my comment is I'm a retired Marine, and I was recently diagnosed with MS about 5 years ago.
Yes.
And during my 5 years of suffering, of pain and ailments, I worked through the VA and through my HMO,
Yes.
and all they ever gave me was prescription
Exactly.
medications, hardcore prescription
Painkillers.
medications.
A veteran in pain, an ex-Marine, and they don't think anything of giving him Vicodin probably and hooking him on that or Percocet.
Well, I talked with one well-intentioned district attorney, and he said, what are we going to do next? Give people heroin? Well, anyone who has ever had a serious or life-altering injury, including myself, I've had 15 surgeries, realizes that morphine drips or nerve blocks or fentanyl or any of these other drugs are far more addictive. In fact, the vast majority of people that I talk to who are legitimate patients, they're getting on medical marijuana as a way to ease themselves off those far more dangerous narcotics.
We have a lot more to talk about, and the Purple People Meter, I'd like to know what that's doing, but we have to take a break, and we'll come right back with a lot more show.